Hi, hello. My name is Charlotte Weber. I am from the University of Tromsø, and today I'll be presenting the work I've been doing with my Eurodoc working group. I am part of the working group on doctoral training, which is led by Eva over here, and we thought we wanted to make something more practical, in particular for doctoral candidates. So we've been looking into transferable skills and why they're important, how you can sort of acquire them, and how you can, most of all, document them that you have them. So we thought this was actually a really important topic when we talk about careers and such. So I'm going to talk you through this. We, as a working group, had the aim of making something like a practical guide, and in particularly for doctoral candidates, because we think that transferable skills are really important, and we wanted to really make something useful in that sense. So, first of all, we realized, well, often doctoral candidates aren't too good. When I ask them, what are your transferable skills? Many people go blank, and we're like, actually, let me think about this. I don't know, right? So we wanted to make this really easy for everybody to kind of just come in and say, well, what skills do I have? So you can easily recognize them, identify them that you have, but also identify the ones that you don't have. So you can just kind of get a little guidance there, which ones you might want to develop. So that was the one goal of the thing we're trying to make. And at the same time, we also wanted to help doctoral candidates to be able to justify the skills that they have and also demonstrate that they have them, and most of all, somewhat document them, because this is often, with transferable skills, the problem, they're somewhat intangible, right? They're not as obvious as maybe like the hard skills many of us have. So we thought we really need to find ways and give people some sort of advice on how we can show that when we apply for a job that we have actually acquired these skills. And so with this in mind, we also wanted to somewhat, maybe when we started out, we're like, well, we really need to tell people why this is important, right? Like, why would you care? Why would you want to have these skills? So we also looked into that a little bit, what these skills are and why we should all want to have them. And so we really, most of us are academics, right? We're within the academic environment. And what we do is we are researchers and scientists, and then we sort of get the skill set that we mostly think of, and that's our hard skills, right? The skills that are sort of related to our research and the actual science we do. And many of us think, okay, these kind of skills are what's going to get us back into the academic job market. But as we spent like almost the whole day yesterday talking about, well, actually, that's not how it's going to go, right? Many of us won't actually get a job in academia, even if we wanted to. So we're going to have to expand a little bit. And that's why we're going to have to expand and look into other sectors, which includes like the governmental sector, but also the non-academic sector in the industry. And with these sectors in mind, that's also where our transferable skills really come into play. Because I heard somebody ask yesterday, like, actually, do we need all these PhDs? Like, because who needs us, right? But we do have this whole other skill set that we often actually tend to forget about, and that's our soft skills, our transferable skills, and all these other competencies that come with us as a researcher that we've sort of gathered as well within the academic context, but we can easily apply them into another field, which is why we can transfer them, and that's why we call them transferable skills. So that's actually the skill set that makes us super relevant for the other job markets. And that's also the skill set that can add to our sort of hard skills that we've gained through our research, and that can hopefully get us employed in sectors outside of academia, but very well also inside academia, because it just sort of adds relevance to you as an employee and makes you more valuable for your employer. And that's really why you want to have these skills, right? Because you're just more employable. And there's many studies and reports out now that actually confirm that, where people have talked to employers in and outside of academia, and they said, well, we really want people with transferable skills because that's so valuable for us. Because we know you're good in your science, but we also want to know you're good with the other stuff. And So with that in mind, we kind of went through a lot of reports and other publications trying to say, okay, what are the transferable skills actually that we're talking about? And it turns out it's a transferable skills jungle out there. There's not a lot of very clear guidelines, so we tried to make sense of it all to make it a little bit easier and to present it to people. So we tried to put them into little categories that makes it a little bit easier to understand them. And I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. It's not an exclusive list because our total list is something like 60 different transferable skills, but just so you get an idea of what's sort of meant by that. So we have research competencies, for example, like being able to analyze data and write grant applications, but also be familiar how to implement and apply research ethics and integrity. Of course, our educational skills, that includes like planning a course, actually teaching a class, a student, or supervising somebody for a thesis, for example. We have the communication skills, like giving a presentation or talking to a non-technical audience, which is increasingly becoming important now that we're, as scientists, more required to sort of disseminate and practice outreach towards the public, but also scientific writing. Then we have the open science skills, and I know this falls somewhat under the research competencies, but we really thought we wanted to highlight their importance to be in line with what the EU says, but also with what Eurodoc is really trying to push. And by making it their own little category, we also thought that it would somewhat raise awareness with people that these skills are important, and to have a better idea what you actually want to look into. So just being familiar with how to, read and understand open access journal policies, what are the differences, how can I use open access data, how can I make my data open access, how can I manage that sort of data, and also open peer review. And then we have other skills, and these are often, I think, the skills a lot of us forget about, or that's at least what I know from my colleagues. Like, we do this every day, so a lot of this is so kind of part of us that we're not really aware that these are actually part of our skills. Like the cognitive abilities, we do this every day as researchers. We're just, we critically think, we do apply abstract thinking, and we have to be creative in solving all these issues that come our way. So this is all part of your skill set. As well as the organizational skills, like you have to manage your project, right? You have to manage your money, you have to manage your time, in particular in times where mental health plays a problem, right? Finding the right balance between work and recreational activities is important. And as we learned, career planning really is a thing now. Like, for example, identifying your transferable skills would be part of a career planning skill. Enterprise skills, really important within academia, but also really important outside of academia. Being informed about entrepreneurship, individual property rights, and also standardization is really important. So if you have a plan going outside in the industry, going towards innovation, this might really be something you want to look at. Interpersonal skills also really important because it's not only us as like a machine and we perform, but we are all people, right? And I feel research often feels like, oh, it's just dealing with people a lot of the time. So we are team working, right? We have to network. Look at us now, like everybody trying to chat everybody up and trying to get your connections in place. And also, how do you handle conflicts when they arise? That's all parts of your skill set. And now, when we identified all these skills, we wanted to make it easy for all early career researchers to just kind of have a list there, be able to go in and say, okay, actually, I have this skill, I have that skill, and just kind of be able to check off that list and to identify your own personal skill set, see what you have, while at the same time be able to go, oh, actually, this skill I haven't even thought about, this seems really important, I might want to get that, so you can actively identify the ones that you're still lacking, and then you could sort of actively develop them and add them to your skill set, somewhat depending a little bit on what you want to do in your future, right? So that's also something where we said, well, somewhat personal responsibility comes in here, and we need to know where do we want to be and what do I need in order to get there. So this could be part of that plan when you try to map out your career. Now, how do we get these skills? Well, you see, I was kind of like going, that's like a little bit difficult because they're quite intangible, a lot of them. And without wanting to go too deep into the topic of learning, that's like a very complex thing in itself, and people do PhDs on that stuff. But we thought, well, we tried to understand the complexity of learning, but we wanted to keep it practical. So we said, you know what? We're just going to give a little bit of advice to get people thinking how to possibly get these skills. And of course, you can take a somewhat traditional approach. You can take a course. We heard PhD schools now offer these kind of courses where you can get these skills. So you can take a course, you can go to a workshop, you can also try to figure it out yourself, go out there, search, dig into a topic. That would be the somewhat, let's say, maybe most obvious approach for an academic to take. But we also wanted to encourage people to understand a lot of transferable skills are actually based on the learning by doing kind of concept, right? Like, you only learn how to give a presentation by actually giving a presentation. You probably notice if you've been teaching, you get better in teaching as you go. So you do get a lot of these skills by simply going out there and trying. But we also wanted to encourage people to think about outside of their academic lives, because especially if you're an early career researcher, your experience is limited, right? You've only had maybe 25, 35 years to get on that, and maybe 5 years ago you have not been doing any of these things. So what can we do? Think about your life outside of work. If you are, for example, a football coach, maybe you have really great supervision skills. If you're a single mom with 4 kids, I'm sure you have really good time management. Like, think about all the other things you do that contribute to your life and add to your skill set, because we do a lot of things, right? You might be teaching, maybe not in academia, but maybe you're giving piano lessons. So you do have teaching skills in one or the other way. So think about these things and what you have and what you do. But now, how can we document the skills? That's almost like the most important part, because at some point you're like, well, I did all these things, but now I want to apply for a job, and how can I show I can actually do all this stuff? And so we thought of actually using the portfolio as an example on how to possibly document them. And when I say portfolio, I'm not thinking like the old school kind of printout folder, but actually making sense and using what we have in this digital world. So there's a lot of online portfolios these days, and also a lot of stuff out there that gives you guidelines and sort of helps you a little bit how you could set something like this up. And we thought this would be a great idea by, first of all, demonstrating that you do have digital skills, that you make use of the tools that are offered today, while at the same time it gives you a lot of opportunities. There's hardly any limitations. So you could easily just upload the traditional kind of stuff, like a certificate, whatever courses you've taken. You usually get a paper, even if there's no ECTS, you can just, demonstrate, here's the thing, I've done this, I've taken this class. At the same time, you can maybe upload an essay. A lot of people would maybe write something on their teaching philosophy. You can show how you can critically think and reflect even over your own teaching. So that's all kind of pieces that you could put up there. And you can be creative, right? Like, think of what matters to you, what you think makes you valuable as a researcher, what you've done, the kind of thinking and processing you've been doing, describing your learning curve. While at the same time, we can also make use of digital media. So you might as well be able to upload audio, video. How do you show that you can give a nice talk? Upload a video of you giving a talk, right? You've been on a radio show and doing public outreach, put up the audio file. So there's really many things you can do. And at the same time, you can also show, well, if we are in academia and you want to say, well, I do awesome classes, I have really great teaching materials, why not upload your teaching materials, your slides, showing how you've been working in a flipped classroom whatsoever. So this would give you many possibilities, and there's really nothing that narrows you down. And so that's really everything that we're trying to put in a compressed version into this guide. And I'm calling it guide now. Maybe it's going to be something more like a report. It's not finalized yet, so we're working really hard on trying to wrap this thing up. And So really what we have to do is now just sort of finish up the last bits and hopefully publish somewhat in May, I think. And I'm telling you this because we're hoping to promote it. We're really hoping that people will use it. That's why we're trying to keep it as practical as possible. And so that's why I'm hoping this would be a great outlet. Obviously, it will go through the Eurodoc channels, but we'd really appreciate if you could somewhat promote it in your own network. So yes, so keep your eyes and ears open. It will come your way soon. And with that, I want to thank all of you for being here today, and of course my work group, and especially my co-authors and everybody that has contributed with sweat and tears to this document. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Sounds like a very innovative and interesting idea that you are developing here. Do we have any comments or questions from the audience? Or maybe from the other panelists? Is there something you would like to comment on this?
Well, I'll be asking you a bit later because we're working on something similar in one network, very small one, but that was really interesting. Thank you very much.
Please, here from.
Thank you, Holger Schwertler, Thesis Germany. Yeah, I think it's a very useful practical skill set. I could really imagine that PhD candidates in my network will use it. Thank you.
Please.
Thanks for this, Charlotte. I just have a very simple question. I'm wondering how we can contribute these skills and get these skills across to the doctoral schools and the graduate schools, across Europe.
Yeah, obviously we've been thinking about that. Right now it's mostly sort of trying to make it public that it's out there and using Eurodoc, and we hope to use the sort of NA channel and then sort of the local channels to really create awareness. Otherwise we don't have a better action plan for now, but obviously I'm open for ideas if there's anything you can think of. But I think this is already a great starting point to try get it out.
Any other comments or questions? Well, it seems like a pretty straightforward idea. I mean, people get it; they don't have to ask. Right. I think we could now go to the next presentation. Kirsi, please.